Today, I'm going to be talking with one of my friends, Dan Rapoza, local photographer. I'm sure you've seen him around, and his amazing book, Plymouth Then and Now. Dan did an incredible job with this book. He took old historic photos and interlaced them with new photos he got, and it'll look seamless. Really, really cool story of Plymouth. Our office is on here. There's over, I think he said 100 photos are on here. So him and I talked for a while. And hope you guys enjoy the video. If you do, let me know, and let me know who else you want to have on this video, and we'll sit down and talk. See you guys soon. Dan Rapoza, tell me a little about your book. So you're a local photographer, obviously.
Local photographer, yeah. Been in this town 41 years, and picked up the camera in 1998. Well, to start professionally doing things.
I was 6 years old by then, just to make you feel old.
Thank you for making me feel old. I look younger than you. No, I'm just kidding. No, second grade I got my first camera.
Second grade?
Second grade, yeah. And I would bring it to school all the time, you know, out at recess, and taking action shots of my friends jumping off the swings and all that. Because I've always loved photography, you know?
Yeah.
Parents always had National Geographics. The photography in National Geographic is mesmerizing.
Yeah.
And then, you know, while I'm supposed to be listening in class, you know, I'm looking through the pictures in the science book and looking at pictures of volcanoes and lightning. I'm mesmerized by it. So, yeah, second grade I asked for my first camera. And
what kind of camera was it? Do you know?
Oh, I don't. It was one of those little flat cameras with a film looked like binoculars. I can't remember the name of the film. And then my mother would take it to CVS, which is now Setting the Space, and we'd ship it out. And it would show up like 2 weeks later, and I'd run out to the mailbox, and it was like Christmas, and you know, open my pictures. My mother was a big like picture coordinator, so she had all the albums, you know, with the sticky little pages, and she'd label all of them like 1981 to 1982, and had them all on a bookshelf. So I got that from her, and I started doing that, you know, with myself. So I'd run outside whenever a thunderstorm was coming or a sunset or something. You know?
Yeah.
But 98 is where it really took off. I went to Ritz Camera, bought a Pentax ZX50. My first like, whoa, I can change lenses.
Right, yeah.
Look how cool this is. And I started shooting bands. And following my buddies' bands around and shooting at like the ranch house and whatever, and then I'd meet more bands. And back then, I know you never experienced this, but all we had was beepers, not even cell phones. So I had a pager, and bands would say, hey, you know, what's your number? Can you photograph our band? So I'd always get a pen and a bar napkin. Be like, well, here's my home number, and here's my beeper number.
That's
Give
hilarious.
me a call.
Here's my beeper number.
And I was like, why don't I have cards? I thought you needed to be like, you know,
like
licensed.
Big time or something?
Yeah,
or,
like having made it, have someone print you a business card.
Right.
So, no, I went down to We Print Today and had some business cards made up, and shortly after that, I was photographing bands on Lansdowne Street.
Wow.
At Mamakin's, 18 years old, running around, hanging out backstage with the bands. And
were they paid gigs at this point, or is this all like, of course not? Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
But the fact that all my friends were in the woods drinking 30 packs of Ice House, standing around a fire, and I was
You're out working. You're hustling.
out working, shooting, hanging out with the band. That was really cool. And eventually it led to the first, do you shoot weddings? And I was like, yeah, of course I do. Here's my card. And luckily my first wedding was a little backyard outdoor wedding, like under a tent. So it was easy. I didn't have to battle limos and dark churches and all that. But
I mean, did you, because I know like when I first started too, like when I first started doing drone photography for real estate was one of my first things. You were actually one of the first photographers that I worked with over at Hayden Ridge, I think it was. Yeah. So it's like when you first started, how did you figure out what you were worth? When someone said, hey, Dan, I want you to film my band or photograph my band, how much do you charge? Were you like, oh shit, I got to go on Google and look at how much to charge? Or?
There was no Google. I had no computer.
That's right. You're old. Yeah.
I had a typewriter. Yeah. No, I would go to Borders bookstore, believe it or not, and go to the photography section and look at books on how to pose people, because I got requests for family portraits. I'm like, how do I sit a family of 5 down? No idea. By the seat of my pants. But it always just fell into place.
Yeah.
Always
you have no
nervous.
background.
Always, no.
Yeah.
No classes, no school, nothing like that. But, very nervous before a shoot. But once I was there, it just falls into place. I still get nervous before I shoot a wedding. After all these years.
Well, it's a high stress thing. You can't really miss a shot at a wedding. Right. At least real estate, you could, redo a shot and you have all the time you want, for the most part.
There's things that have more stress than others. But so I would look at books on what to charge and what other people. And I had other friends that were photographers, Jenny V, Kristen Young, and other photographers around town that, I could ask, because Jenny V was working at Sprint's Photo right next to Golden Gull, and that's where I used to bring all my film. So we'd get to talk, and she's like, wait, you're charging what? And I was like, okay. Next time, but in order for me to get confident, I needed to wait that week to get my bags of film back. And that was a very stressful period, just waiting and waiting, like, especially weddings. You get 2 bags worth of film back, and you throw away, keep, throw away, keep.
That's right, yeah. So you weren't even obviously in the digital part yet.
I didn't switch from digital to film until 2008. Yeah, so from 1998 to 2008 was all film. You shoot.
That's so stressful. And so you hope the shot came out, and you go through all your shots, and you just see which ones came out right.
And it was a shame because back then, if you weren't working or you didn't have money, you couldn't buy film. And if you had a bunch of film, you still had to pay for it to get developed. So you couldn't always just go and shoot on the fly and chase a storm around and shoot, 500 images on a whim.
Right.
You know what I mean? But things got better. I got more and more comfortable, and different jobs came about. I mean, it went from bands to weddings to family portraits, and everything opened up once I learned how to shoot digital. I worked with Bob Mascioni, Ocean Walk Photographers, Ocean Street in Marshfield, and he showed me, once I bought my digital camera, how to use it. I mean, I already knew all the settings, the ISO and the aperture, because I've been doing it 10 years, but to be able to change it on the fly and plug in some lights, I mean, it went...
It's a game changer, too.
Game changer. Yeah. And then I got on MySpace.
Oh. Now we're talking.
Fucking dinosaurs. Yeah. I got a cell phone.
Wow. You got a cell phone, you got MySpace, digital
MySpace,
camera.
A website. Yeah. And started throwing it out there, and the response was crazy. Most of them from friends I went to high school with. Can you shoot this and you can shoot that? Because back then, there was no camera phones yet. Everyone was still shooting film. Right. So they didn't know what film to buy, and if the flash didn't fire, the color was too green. So anything they wanted photographed, family pet or a tree in the backyard, they would have to call in someone, like me to shoot it. And, but yeah, I don't know.
And you were all Plymouth pretty much, or were you traveling? I know you said you did stuff in Boston for bands and stuff, or were you primarily focused here?
I was, basically focused here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you grew up in Plymouth?
I grew up,
so then you're
born and raised in Plymouth.
Yeah. So it makes sense to kind of work and stay in the same place.
I did a quick little 4 or 5 month stint in Key Largo, and it was beautiful, but it was good to come back.
I was going to say, it's quite the opposite, huh?
It's huge. And I needed that little, I had a little window of time, no girlfriend, no wife, no pets, no mortgage, where I could kind of escape for a little bit.
Just unwind, no business at all, just kind of to go? Or?
No, I was injured, and I was on workman's comp. Mm-hmm. I had broken my foot. That's why I walk with a little limp. I have a plate and 11 screws in my left foot.
I just thought
I have a little gimp limp. Huh. But no, so while I was on workman's comp, waiting for them to figure out what they were going to do, they were giving me a weekly check. So once I learned how to walk again, I said, all right, when you guys make a decision, I'll be under a palm tree. And and I was down there for about 4 months, and I got a call, and they said, you got to come home. You got to be in Taunton next week. Came home, got a little bit of money, and that's when I made the transition. I went out and bought my computer, bought my digital camera, and bought all that. So the broken foot really helped.
Yeah, so you can thank your broken foot for
I
part
can.
of what you do. Yeah.
Now limp
Not many
for
people
life.
can think you're limp for
Literally
life.
the break of my life.
So here you are, this young kid. Your friends are all drinking. You're working. You're building up your business slowly but surely. Now you're here in Plymouth. I first knew about you because of your Jeep, the back of your Jeep. So honestly, like a lot of locals here know your Jeep because of your logo on the back.
Yeah.
That's how I knew who you were. And then I found out you were a photographer who did weddings and real estate and that kind of thing. So you're definitely, you worked as a kid growing up. You love photography, you love doing photos, and now here you are, your own business. You're doing stuff now. You have a book now, which we're going to talk about. So Plymouth Then and Now.
Yeah.
How did you transfer from, okay, I'm going to do paid gigs in Boston and weddings and that kind of thing, to now doing this book, which is definitely
This book
unique.
was never supposed to be a book. My grandmother used to cut out articles that Maggie Mills used to write. She was a writer for the Old Colony Memorial, and she used to do a segment, literally, Plymouth Then and Now. Pretty much the same concept I have. My grandmother would cut them out in the newspaper and put them in the same kind of wedding albums with the peel back, sticky, whatever. And I remember going over to her house and looking at them and thinking it was the coolest thing in the world. And then, we get those free calendars in the mail every once in a while where it shows you, different locations around Plymouth. So one day I just took a few of those images from the calendar and went out and shot them and scanned in the picture from the calendar, public domain, by the way, just covering my butt now. And I just put a couple examples on Facebook, exactly the way the book's laid out, the before and the after. And the reception was huge because I was, putting it on, Plymouth pages, and the response was awesome. So I was like, oh, well, all right. I mean, this is getting me a little attention here. So someone was like, you should do a calendar. I'm like, well, that'll be easy enough. I mean, I only need 12 of these. But then, I got a book for Christmas, which is Images of America. A lot of pictures of Plymouth from the 1800s, 1880s, 1890s, and went around and got a few more, and then people were like, you got to do a book. And at that time, I didn't have the resources. I didn't know any publishers. So I said, all right, well, if I'm going to do a book, I'm not going to put out a 32-page book. I need a good, solid number. So my goal was 100. And it took me 2 years to do. I was stuck in the 30s, and then I got a bunch more, and then I was stuck at like 70-something for a while, and then I finally got to 100. But the thing is, you can only shoot 2 times a year for the afters, either early spring or when the leaves fall, because a lot of these point of references are blocked by leaves once the once spring and summer pops. So you got to make a choice. You're going to shoot in the spring when the buds are popping and the colors coming through, or in miserable gray November after all the leaves have fallen. So I had to do my homework during the winter and whatever, and when spring came around, I said, all right, I got these images, let's go bang them out. And I finally got to 100 and put out that little press printed book, and there was a little buzz about it, but then it faded away, and I put it on the back burner for 8 years. And my friend Melissa Green said, you've got to get on board with this book, with the Plymouth 400. If you don't, you're going to miss this ride. I said, all right. So I contacted well-known publisher Kate Conway from Wicked Whale Publishing, and she looked it over, and she says, okay, we need to change this, make it bigger, take your logo off of every page, not make it so much about you, and make it a real, legit history book. Because the old book was, in the back was like, oh, here's some of my scenics, and contact me if you need wedding photography or whatever. And it wasn't geared towards Plymouth. It was a fun project. I'm like, wow, look at this. It's in print. And she basically, told me what to do and who to contact, and she got me set up on Amazon. And she just emailed me the template, and I drag and dropped all the pictures, because the other book was a 5x7. This is an 8x10. So I dragged and dropped all the images and had to write in all the streets and the year and all that, and then she took care of all the publishing, and here we are 700 books later, and It's all.
I know. I see you slinging books at every event, and it's a lot of grunt work for you to do it. Yeah.
Never in a million years. I was so reluctant to drop money on that first box of 100 back in August. I'm like, well, you don't have to sell them all right away. I mean, if you have some left, I'm sure they'll make nice Christmas gifts. The box of 100 was gone in about a week. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. So
here you are 700 later.
Yeah,
You're still slinging them out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to backtrack just for a second. There's a ton of stuff you just said, but so how did you decide? So 100 locations you got?
Yeah.
How did you pick what locations? Was it
where I could
locations
get my body where exactly that photographer was? There was actually a lot more.
So there were a ton more, but you researched, okay, I can physically get that shot in a similar way that this old photographer
it was frustrating because there was some good old photos in there, especially of the old Jordan Hospital. But the old Jordan Hospital, I mean, now Beth Israel, I can't keep up. But it was just this little hospital on a hill, and the photographer was taking all the photos from where the main hospital is now. So I tried going in the hospital and like photographing out a window, and then there was some other locations. I was like, if I can't line this up perfectly in Photoshop, like with guidelines, it says I can't use it. It's got to be spot on. So I just had to use the images that I could line up perfect, you know?
But did you, like, when you were on site, did you have a photo with you to line up?
Yeah.
And how much, let's just say,
I just had
each
pages.
Just one page, and you just shot from looking at the image?
Yeah, I cut the pages out of there was some postcards that a friend let me borrow. There was some pages from the calendar, some pages from an old book, and I would just cut them out and walk around with them and line them up. And if it was a go, then I would check it off with a marker, and just walking around with a stack of ripped out pages and old school.
So how much time do you say per photo did it take? Is it pretty quick once you knew? Is it really?
I mean, because 90% of this book is within a half mile from Leiden Street. It's Water Street, it's Leiden Street, it's Main Street Extension, Market Street, all that, places we drive by a million times a day. So, and a lot of the places in this book, there's easy point of references, whether it's an old rooftop or a wall or a chimney or something. So it was pretty easy.
Yeah, it's just there's a lot. But then
post-production.
I was going to say post-production must be. So when you pulled into post-production, you layered on the old image? And you
I scanned in all the images that I checked off that were usable in the book, and I'd bring them into Photoshop. Then I'd bring in my photo into Photoshop, and I'd put them on the same page. And I drag in, guidelines and just line up chimneys and whatever else. And if it worked,
So so when you took the photo and brought it back, did some of those not even work because you couldn't line it up?
Some of them didn't.
That's super frustrating then.
Yeah, it was.
Because I mean, again, like your radius is pretty small, but I mean, you still spent time getting the photo.
Yeah.
Just to have it not even work.
Yeah, there were a lot of like, all right,
like
whatever,
you're so
next.
close. Yeah, like next one. Yeah.
But for the most part, I mean, 90% of the ones I took and chose for the book worked.
Are there ones that stand out to you, like the day
Bramhall
you shot?
is my favorite.
Yeah.
I mean,
plus the cover of the book
I
too.
love the Bramhall family, and the other book actually was the old Plymouth portico on top of the new one, and it looked all right, but my publisher Kate was like, I don't like the flow, the top and bottom.
Yeah.
And she says, look at Bramhall. She says, that looks pretty close. So when I took the picture of Bramhall's, it was just for the book. It was never meant to line up the way it does in this book. So I was like, huh. So I laid them on top of each other and started erasing the old one and the windows and the rooftop and the Bramhall sign.
If you look really quickly, you think it looks like one photo.
Yeah.
So
she convinced me to change the cover. I was a little reluctant at first. I'm like, yeah, it's Plymouth though. I mean, it's Plymouth Rock. How could you not want this? But yeah, that's my favorite.
That's the one that stood out the most.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, so 700 books later. 2020 is coming up pretty quick here.
Yeah,
are there
more?
Well, I was gonna say, are there more plans to print a ton more books, or is there like an ultimate goal for you to print?
Well, there's more books sitting on the box that your mic stand is sitting on.
Yeah,
right
you
now.
like this mic stand? We are very, very high class here.
So no, I have another 100. That's half the shipment, and then I have a couple craft fairs this weekend that I want to get rid of that 100. Then I'll bring in, another 100 for the Christmas rush, and we'll see if Plymouth 400 wants to order some for their website. They said they did, but I know they're really busy right now. So let's just keep it going. It's exciting.
Is there a round 2 in the future for you for a book, you think? Or
I actually put a little poll out on Facebook because I have some people now that I've met that have a lot of Plymouth photos from like the 50s, 60s, 70s, enough where I could easily snag up 100 and do a volume 2. And a lot of people said, maybe you should just rest up on Plymouth and go do other towns.
That's what I was going to say. Are there other towns?
Sandwich and Marshfield. Yeah. Kate, the publisher, said, I think Sandwich is the oldest town on the Cape, and a lot of it is unchanged. So that is on the list, and so is Marshfield. I got a lot of friends from Marshfield that could easily take me around and kind of be my chaperone and say, this is that house, you know? So, yeah, I want to keep going with this. I'm curious to see. I mean, Plymouth was easy because it's my backyard. Right. But the groundwork is laid out. The templates are laid out. The publishing is laid out. I mean, all I have to go do is find these images, scan them, drag them and drop them, and just submit it, you know, and I got a new book. So, and my goal is 100. So
ambitious. I like it.
Yeah,
it's
it's exciting. You know, I mean, through all this, you know, weddings get slow, especially during the winter. The high school senior season really only lasts from September to November 1st. So these niches kind of come and go throughout the course of the year. So that's why I always try to keep things different. Halloween, I like to do my Halloween shoots, you know, and this is, I don't know, this is...
Well, it's a new venture for you. It's another way of
totally
someone
new,
finding you.
You know? It's exciting, and the demand for it is, it's really, really cool. And what's interesting is when I get orders through PayPal, they obviously have to leave, you know, their address and where they want me to ship it to. And some of these addresses, from here to California and almost every state in between, you know, whether it's people that had grandparents from Plymouth or used to live in Plymouth and retired, or people that live in Plymouth that are shipping them out as gifts. So it's nice to see that it's traveling.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, if you're visiting here or you have roots here and you're moved away, I mean, it's Plymouth Then and Now. So you're covering everything from... So what's the oldest picture you have in that book?
They're all 1880s.
1880s.
Yeah, I think the oldest one in there is before San Diego's was torn down to make the fire station. San Diego's is in there twice. It actually was just a house at that address, I think, and that was 1870 something. And then they tore it down and built the fire station. And then that's only a few short years later, like 1880. So I think the picture of San Diego's before it was made a fire station is the oldest one in there, 1870 something.
Wow. There's a lot for people to connect to. They can connect to the old, the new, and the process, and hopefully they'll hear this type of stuff and find out how, you know, the process went for you. And it's amazing you're doing this. And like I said, I mean, when you first did this, you know, like I could kind of tell you, like, yeah, you know, I'll sell a few, but now 700 later, and there's no stopping you.
I hope
at this
not.
Point. Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's not even Christmas yet, and it's not even 2020 yet. And every week I talk to somebody, they're like, you know, you got to try this, you know, craft fair, or you got to go, you know, to this location, or you got to try to sell them at this store. And there's so many people that have so many awesome marketing ideas. I'm trying to do one at a time, but they're available at 5 or 6 stores in town. So let me see. I'll start at one end. Pioppi's Liquors, the Pretentious Pickle, right there on Water Street. Richard's Liquors, Angelo's Famous Roast Beef.
Right across from us right here.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Windmere Gift Shop is selling them. Locally Yours in the Village Landing is selling them. That little, I forget the name, that little antique place right in the corner of Summer Street before you turn down at Jenny Gristmill, right in the corner.
Oh, yeah.
I always forget it. And Bradford's Liquors. I mentioned 3 liquor stores.
You're in the liquor stores.
But I'm telling you, it's crazy. They put them on the shelves, and I'm restocking Bradford's like 10 books, you know, every week and a half. Same with all three of them. You know, it's right there on the counter. They get their lottery ticket. They have their wine. They're like, oh my God, look. It's $21.95. You know, people.
Cheap. Yeah.
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 Someone wants to buy your book. You just said where you can buy it, but where else can they go? They can buy it on your website.
You can find me on Facebook, but always my website, rapozaphoto.com. You can buy it there now, but I'm in the process of buying a new website template because right now it's a little tricky. If you want to buy this book, you can only really check out with PayPal or make an offline arrangement. With the new template I'm going to buy, it's much more up to date and modern. You can use Venmo, PayPal, a credit card, or you know what I mean. So we're going to work on that. That should be up and running by the first of the year. But you can always find me on Facebook, any one of those stores, and rapozaphoto.com.
You heard it here. Buy the book. It's a great book. It's in our office right now, so it's sitting on our table. And appreciate you coming by, Dan.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah.